While the fight for social justice blooms, the leaves of factions within the fight sprout as well. While the goal may be the same, leaders will quarrel over how to achieve the goal. As we sat down and watched the musical Allegiance for our Cast 100 honors class, we watched Sami Kimura and Frankie Suzuki quarrel over how to achieve freedom for intern Japanese Americans. Throughout the semester, I've analyzed the musical through the lens of communication scholar Herbert W. Simon's concepts of social movement strategies and leadership, and I believe that I have successfully identified the social movement strategies used by Sami and Frankie. Using Herbert W. Simon's concepts of social movement strategies, I will argue that Sami Kimura is a moderate leader, while Frankie is a militant leader. I will first explain why Sami is a moderate leader, then I will move on to explain why Frankie is a militant leader. First, let's discuss Sami's methods. Sami is best described as a moderate social movement leader. Throughout the musical, Sami uses moderate language and ideology to achieve the freedom and dignity of Japanese Americans. When Sami notices his fellow internees suffering from the poor conditions of the camp, he tries to start up a petition for people to write down their grievances. In the 2018 script, written by Mark Acito, Jay Kuo, and Lorenzo Theone, Sami announces that he will send this petition to what he calls the camp administrators. According to Simons, moderate leaders use the valued language of the social order. Moderate leaders will use terms valued by the establishment to show amity and respect for the authority. In doing so, they appease the authorities, which can help them win their favor. As Sami uses the term camp administrators, he honors the authorities to help get them to see the movement as a friend, like how moderate leaders try to appease authorities to win their favor. After he announces the petition, Sami breaks into the song, Get in the Game. According to the song's lyrics, written by Jay Kuo, Sami sings, "There's no use placing blame, we just gotta get in the game." Moderate leaders will make an effort not to antagonize the establishment. They believe that by integrating themselves in and allying with the establishment will see the movement as a friend, not a foe, and listen to the movement. Sami implies these moderate beliefs when he says there's no use placing blame. Like a moderate leader, Sami does not want to antagonize the establishment, he wants to work with it. Sami's tactics also correlate with those of a moderate leader. When the questionnaires arrive at the camp asking Japanese Americans if they are willing to serve in the military and if they will pledge loyalty to the United States, Sami tries to convince his fellow internees to answer yes to both questions. According to Simons, moderate leaders will assume or pretend to assume an ultimate identity of interest between the movement and the larger structure. Moderates believe that by doing this, they will convince the establishment that the movement's goals align with the establishment's principles. Sami believes that if Japanese Americans demonstrate loyalty towards the country, the government will believe that Japanese Americans share the same values with the United States and are not traitors. After his father Tatsuo is sent to a harsh labor camp, Sami enlists. According to the script written by Acito, Kuo, and Theone, Sami says, "If we prove we're loyal, they'll free Pop. They'll free all of us." After saving Mike Mazuoka's brother's life, Sami becomes a public figure who represents the idea that for Japanese Americans to be freed, they must unite with and fight for the United States in the war. Moderate leaders try to work with the system and what it values to persuade authorities and enact change from within. According to Dean Williams Greer's 1973 paper, The Application of Herbert Simon's Theory of Analyzing Social Movements to Women's Liberation, feminist activist and congressperson Edith Green provides an example of this method, as she believed that working with men in Congress would show them that women are human beings who are worthy of inalienable rights. As Sami becomes a social movement leader in the public eye, he emulates this moderate method of working with the system as he works in the military to prove that Japanese Americans are loyal citizens. Now that I've explained why Sami is a moderate leader, I will discuss Frankie's social movement strategies. Frankie fits the definition of a militant social movement leader. Frankie harbors strong militant beliefs towards the establishment. According to the script written by Acito, Kuo, and Theone, when Sami announces that he will send his petition to the camp administrators, Frankie retorts, "You mean wardens." He then further insinuates that the camp runners will leave the internees to decay. For militant movements, the enemy is the establishment, and they're not afraid to antagonize it. Militant leaders tend to express antipathy towards the establishment in their rhetoric. Here, Frankie is expressing militant, antipathetic beliefs towards the establishment, which he believes does not have the interests of Japanese Americans in mind. In Acito, Kuo, and Theone's script, when the questionnaire arrived, Frankie announced, "So we can't live free in this country, but we can die for it." Frankie further insinuates his militant beliefs and anger towards the government for locking Japanese Americans up and then asking them to fight in the war. These beliefs plant the seeds for his militant protests. Frankie uses militant demonstrations to help his cause. At the Heart Mountain Camp Dance, Frankie performs the satirical song Paradise, in which he ridicules the American government for asking Japanese Americans to fight in the war after locking them up in rundown camps. In the song, which is written by Jay Cruel, he asks if anyone is happy, and most of his fellow internees shout out no. Simon states that militant leaders use striking demonstrations to amplify the issues, to delegitimize and provoke the establishment. According to Richard Jensen, author of Leadership in Contemporary American Labor Unions, Adaptation and Renewal, John L. Lewis of the United Mine Workers of America proved to be an example of this tactic, as he was known to harass and agitate the mining management and the government. The delegitimization of the authorities can also be used to gain a following of sympathizers with a movement. Frankie's song is a militant act since he criticizes how the government has treated Japanese Americans, which helps him gain a following of fellow internees who feel the same way as him. When Frankie receives a draft notice to join the military, he decides that he will break the law and refuse the draft to resist the government's abuse of Japanese Americans. He recruits others to join him in this act of rebellion. According to Simons, militant leaders will stand up to the establishment that they are fighting against, instead of working with the system like a moderate leader. A militant leader will oppose it. According to Valerie Schrader, author of the 2014 article Facework Social Movement Leadership and Glinda the Good, a textual analysis of the characters Galinda in the musical, Elphaba from the musical Wicked embodies this tactic as she refuses to work with the authorities of Oz and defies the laws to free the animals. Like militant social movement leaders such as Elphaba, Frankie resists and works against the government. Because of the tactics and rhetoric they use, Sammy is a moderate leader and Frankie is a militant leader. As they work towards achieving freedom and respect for Japanese Americans during World War II, Sammy takes a moderate approach as he becomes a leader, and Frankie uses militant techniques. From the outside, it may seem easy to judge either one of them or pick a side. However, their methods stem from their complex emotions and beliefs. The situation is not as simple as it appears to be. If you are to criticize either, at least empathize with both Dr. Moderate and Mr. Militant. Thank you.